Christ's bride, the church, is recognizing that the branch has sprouted green leaves and that we are in the summer of the ages. Chapters 2 and 3 of the book of Revelation repeatedly exhort, "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." Now there are 7 churches, the spirits of which remain to this day, though they go by different names in geography. While pronouncing the commendations and condemnations of each one, the Spirit of Jesus mentions to John, and us by extension, a group called the Nicolaitans. Quote, "But this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. And thus you also have those who hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate." That's Revelation 2, 6 and 15. Who are these Nicolaitans the Spirit of Jesus speaks so strongly against? They were the ones in the early church who perverted the faith with the practices of the pagan cultures around them. Make no mistake, the pagan cultures were led into the idolatrous practices of worshiping demons, the very enemies of God's church. The Nicolaitans no longer exist as a formal faction, but their culture is alive and well to this very day. Don't believe me? Watch how many Christian church congregations this very month will participate in the hellish Druidic festival of Samhain, known by the Church of Satan as the Fall Climax and sugar-coated by the 8th century Catholic Church as All Hallows Eve and later Halloween. Is it merely innocent gluttony and demon impersonation? Well, that question should answer itself. Halloween isn't the only example, though it seems to be the most timely in this month of October. Look at how the pagan practices of the winter solstice and the Roman Saturnalia corrupted the observation of Jesus' birth with mistletoe, Yule logs, and evergreens. Consider the ancient practices of yoga, an invocation of a demon god so popular, especially among women's church groups. Superstitious practices and ceremonies pepper Christian cultures in virtually every country. Involvement with paganism was not the only trademark of the Nicolaitans. They also condoned sexual immorality and the Gnostic notion that those under grace could profusely and unapologetically sin at will. Who can you imagine stands to benefit from a church polluted with unrepentant, compromise, and even demon-affirming or worshiping practices? Well, he's identified as a thief, murderer, and destroyer in John 10:10. Quote, "The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I," that is Yeshua Jesus, "have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly." John 10:10. He who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. 1 John 3:8. So what? So what do we do now? The answer was written by Paul to the Corinthian church, who had a lot of these same traits. And I quote, "Come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you." Here it is in its full context. "Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial? Or what part of a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty." In Romans chapter 12, Paul begs the church in Rome, begs them by God's mercy, verse 1 says, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. For I say, through the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. What he means by that is that we are not supposed to enter into the same mold that the culture around us is. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be set apart. We're supposed to make ourselves look like the loving light we represent and not the darkness that surrounds us. Does the measure of your faith allow you to see where you are tolerating the deeds of the Nicolaitans which God hates? Or are you thinking of yourself more highly than you ought? What practices do you need to tear away from today to be separate from the culture that would steal, kill, and destroy your soul? Consider that as you go into this strange month.